You can put nutmeg in coffee, right?
Absolutely.
Good,
Absolutely.
good. Hey, welcome everyone to this Friday's live stream, and we're having a lot of fun. I got a special guest in the studio today, Dave Taylor, and he's a coffee guy. He's a coffee guy. And let's see, I'm John Townsend. Who's behind the camera that you can't see? Aaron's on the console there making sure the live stream happens and that you guys see what you're supposed to see and the sound is working and all that good stuff. Kyle is in the question seat back there.
Hello.
And he's monitoring those comments and everything, so be good. And Ryan is there. He's stage managing and making sure I don't forget everything.
I'm the boss man.
Yeah. So thank you guys back there. Thanks for Dave showing up here. What are we supposed to be talking about, Ryan?
Well, today we're going to talk about coffee.
Yeah, we're talking about coffee today.
Yeah. And we can do a limited amount of tea questions depending on how far Dave's knowledge seems to go on that. Right now, let's do some housekeeping.
Yes.
Let's talk about support sites.
So a lot of folks like to help us out on the channel here so that we can do more great videos. And so there's a multiple ways you can help us out by doing that. Super Chat is running right now. If you want your question, your comment to pop to the top of the chat window, you can super chat it with a little bit of money and it stays there and we try to read out those things. We love when people support us in that way. Also, Patreon is one of the great ways people support us. And in fact, I've got a list of Patreon names I'll be reading later on. Patreon is such a great way that they help us by donating just a little bit each month. And you can set the amount, any amount you want. So that's a great way. There's a link down in the description section. And of course, we've got our website, which is what we do. We sell 18th and 19th century reproduction things, hats and shirts and cups and all kinds of fun stuff, as well as merch like our Townsend mugs. Those things are available on our website. That's another great way to support us.
All right. Now,
Yeah.
I know that we have a big we got to celebrate here because of fried chicken.
Yeah, so if you guys are familiar with the fried chicken episode, so many people. How long ago was fried chicken?
It'll be 2 years ago in June.
There you go.
June or July.
So 2 years ago, fried chicken's just gotten over the 2 million view mark, so we're celebrating fried chicken. We don't have any with us, but we should. It would be great.
Yes, absolutely.
Dave would like some fried chicken.
Yeah, like some fried chicken. But we really want to thank everyone. A lot of you folks probably found us through fried chicken, and that's still a very, very popular episode. We love that, so thank you so much for that. What else are we doing?
We've got a brand new catalog.
We have a brand new catalog. So I think it was last week we talked about our newest catalog being at the printers. It's here. It's available. A lot of folks have already received theirs in the mail. It's got this cool picture with a real scary guy on the front there. Too bad I don't have a close-up picture for you. That's me over here, and then there's this guy over there. So,
You know, and I got one yesterday, and
Did
I
you?
looked, and somebody already stole my catalog. So I
Really?
have to get some more catalogs.
there you go. So, yeah, they're popular.
Hey,
If
real
you
quick,
are-
$20 donation from Primal Edge.
Hey, thank you.
Primal
Thank you
Edge,
so
see you in the
much.
comment section all the times. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
If you're interested in a copy of the catalog, is there a link?
No.
We forgot the link. There's
I'll
a.
put it
You
in
can go
there.
right to our website there, and we'll put a link down in the chat section for you if you're interested in getting one of these catalogs.
You can stop at Blue Pearl Antiques and steal one from there.
Yeah, or you can steal one from Dave.
Shameless plug.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the Great Appalachian Homesteading Conference.
Yeah, so I have not talked about this because, well, it always seems to me like it's way far out there. It's like months away. Well, unfortunately for me, it's not very far away at all. No, I'm really excited. I'm speaking at this homesteading conference, Great Appalachian Homesteading Conference. It's in Cookeville, Tennessee. I've got a link down in the description section. So if you're interested in homesteading, if you're interested in 18th century things, oh man, I had the list. No, where is it? Oh, it was around here.
So
somewhere.
we need to do some readjusting. Dave has to come in a little bit.
Dave,
more.
is
He's
he
like
hiding
leaning
on the
off.
No,
outside?
I was just leaning back.
Just
There you
kicking
go.
back.
Sit uncomfortably close
now,
to one another.
When is that, did you say, John?
It's May, I think 4th and 5th, the weekend of May the 4th.
Oh. That sounds like an interesting one. I'd like to go there.
A lot of great content in there. There's some other 18th century folks that are going to be there, as well as standard homesteading stuff. They're going to be talking about bees and, well, all kinds of homesteading stuff. So that conference is coming up, and I'll be speaking about 18th century and the connections with homesteading. So it ought to be a really great conference. I'm really excited about that. If you're interested in that, you're in anywhere in that kind of area, make sure to check out the link. You might be really interested in that.
All right,
Off
folks.
the grid.
What's wrong?
Start firing in those coffee questions. We're going to find out who Dave is, what he's about, and then he's going to answer your questions.
Dave, who are you? Am I ready for that?
Yes.
Dave, who are you, and what is this all about?
Okay, well,
Hey, Dave, lean in a little bit more.
Yeah, you're hiding.
Other way, towards John.
Yeah.
it actually started. I've always liked coffee, but I lived in San Francisco in the late '60s, early '70s, and a couple blocks from my apartment was this old Italian guy that had these old iron roaster, and you could smell it down the street, and so that got me hooked. Of course, coming back to Indiana in '73, long before any of you were born. There wasn't any place around here, and then finally a place called S.A. Morrissey in North Manchester opened up selling coffee. It was a tobacco shop, and he also sold coffee in there. So that's where I started buying
Kind of specialty coffees.
Yeah, specialty coffees, the real stuff. And then I did service work for a number of years, and then finally in about '98 opened up the first Blue Lion Coffee House, and we wanted to have the very best, so I went to Coffee Fest and tasted everybody's coffees, picked up who I wanted. It was a little pricey, but I always told my customers, you get the very best that I can. And then a couple of years later, the long story short, I decided to roast my own coffees. That's the way I could guarantee that coffee absolutely fresh from the roaster to you. Matter of fact, I delivered 2 pounds today, and it was 3 hours old.
So how does coffee fit into historical reenactment?
Yeah, tell us your interest in history too.
Well, of course, I've always been interested in history, and I got involved through your dad, Jim, and of course, always liked coffee. And this came in as we opened up the Blue Lion Coffee House. It was an 18th century coffee house because coffee houses have always been in the center of things that were going on, art,
political discourse,
that's,
philosophy.
They say that the American Revolution started at the Green Dragon Coffee House in Boston, Massachusetts, and that's why they gathered there to throw tea in the
And then drink coffee.
Yeah, drink coffee. Yeah, we don't need your stinking tea. But and that's kind of it. So I've continued roasting ever since then. I had closed down the coffee houses. It was more hours than I wanted, but I continued. I had so many requests for coffee. I've continued to roast coffee. I do ship all over the United States.
And you have a special interest in the history of coffee, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Because when you look at it, you look at how coffee began in Ethiopia, is where coffee originally came from, and it was, they brewed it with the leaves, the cherries, the whole thing.
Wow.
It was all just brewed.
Throw
in
the
there.
whole tree in there.
Right. Essentially throwing the tree in there. And then somewhere, I believe around, from what I understand, around 800 or so is when they discovered the process of roasting it. And I brought a little sample of what coffee would have looked like at that time. You can see how dark this is.
Yeah, it's like
and
solid black.
You know, and it was they would grind it up or pound it into a powder, and they would brew it in. This is not exactly it. An Ethiopian coffee pot is a little more bulbous, with a long spout on it, and so that was Ethiopian coffee. And then it went into the Arabic countries, Yemen, and the Arabs, they guarded coffee quite a bit. You had to buy coffee from the Arabs, and anyhow, we got coffee everywhere here.
That's all right.
Anyhow, and finally, this monk smuggled coffee out of the Arab countries into Indonesia.
Seems like a strange place to you,
Yeah. And Then there was a gift of 2 trees that went to France in the 1600s. Now, coffee was really introduced to Europe during the Siege of Vienna, and I don't remember all the exact dates because I don't have to give these talks on a regular basis now. But anyhow, there was one of the soldiers that recognized there was these big bags of what they thought was camel food because they didn't have camels. So what else could this be but camel food? And he knew it as coffee. So that was the first coffee houses were started. Then they spread through Europe pretty quickly. So by the 1700s, there was coffee houses all over France, all over Europe, England, and so there was.
Let's see if we got some specific questions for these guys.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle, let's have some questions.
Okay, so were soldiers issued coffee or other substitutes in rations?
Were they given coffee as other substitutes?
As a
Ration.
ration.
As a ration? Well, they were given coffee as a ration, and it come as green beans. And that was even up till the Civil War. Your coffee ration was green. And you would roast it. And actually there are, in the Civil War, there were muskets that had a coffee grinder built into the buttstock of the musket.
Yeah.
But that's, and coffee was a very valuable commodity. And in all military conflicts, the Army ran on coffee. Especially in the Navy, you always. I was in the Navy, and I always carried my coffee cup with me because you never know when there's a cup of coffee and
Something important's going to happen. I better have my coffee cup.
Yeah, have your coffee cup.
I hate to keep asking. Can you shift towards John? You're just
See,
too far
he's
away
like
from the
hiding
mic.
from me.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, not like in toward. Yeah, more like that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Picky
Our
Aaron.
framing is
Also,
pretty tight
also,
here.
tell them what you
Okay.
got there. You just poured some coffee into that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what's
and
this
I just poured coffee. This is, people talk about pour over coffees, and that's really nothing new. This is a copy of about a 1740s, 1750s coffee pot, and it's the pot with the little thing with the holes in the.
Yeah, we want to see it nice
Here's
and
a
high.
pot,
There you go.
and this has the holes in it, so it's almost like 18th century Mr. Coffee.
There you go.
And I have another one here. I'll show you, but I'm gonna
Put some hot water in there.
put some hot water in here.
Well, that
in
one
my
looks really historic.
Yes.
Hey, while you're doing that, I want to do some donations real quick.
Go ahead.
All right, so $10 from Aaron C.
Thank you, Aaron C.
Thanks,
Oh,
Aaron.
I'll switch the camera. Hang on, so you can see me.
Oh, that explodes in.
$5 from Libby Rudolph. She says, "Nice to see Dave back. He's the reason I'm roasting my own coffee at home." Super
So,
cool.
do I get a cut now with this?
Oh, shit.
She'll send you some coffee.
Okay.
$4.99 from Masker Cruel. I cannot get it right, and you donate Max are cool. That's how you say it.
There you go.
Yeah, Macs are cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Could a common person to get to drink? I don't know.
Whoops. All right.
We forgot to tell our guest to silence his cell phone.
I did. And then $5 from Crystal K Beauty.
All right.
Thank
Who
you.
let a duck in?
Yeah.
Who let a duck in here?
Thanks for the donations, everyone.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you. We
thank you.
appreciate
All right, let's get to some more questions, Kyle.
Okay, was coffee in America influenced by any countries other than England?
Well, and part of that was in the 1700s. A couple of coffee plants were smuggled from France to the island of Martinique. I believe Clouseau was the officer, and they started. And that's where coffee started throughout the Caribbean. Was
Okay.
in the 1700s. So coffee was readily available throughout the Americas, as opposed to tea that had to come all the way from India. And the English, through the
East India Company?
East India Company,
There you go.
controlled tea, whereas coffee was not controlled by the East India Company, and so coffee was much more readily available.
Yeah, and probably smuggled and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff
Oh.
by multiple different countries.
Sure.
So there's going to be a lot of influence there.
Yeah.
Okay, how did people filter their coffee without paper filters?
Well, we're using a piece of cloth right here in this. Some of them didn't really use filters. It was just broken up enough, thrown in the pot, and you would boil it, and then the grounds go to the bottom.
What folks know as cowboy coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes cowboy coffee.
Pretty
yeah.
typical.
Yeah. You do what you can.
Can you talk about parched corn coffee?
Well, it's something that I haven't tried, but people in when you do not have coffee, you can become irritable,
Crazy.
So you consequently, what can I do for that? Was chicory was a real coffee substitute, and it's still mixed with coffees now because it imparts a certain flavor. Café Du Monde down in New Orleans, their specialty is known for coffee with chicory in it, dark roasted coffee, a French coffee, and beignets.
Yeah, you see, there's a coffee house in South Bend called Chicory Cafe.
Yeah,
There's a lot of places use that.
and
There's-
it grows wild on the roads here.
Yeah, and there is an episode, if you go back into the back catalog, there's a, what did we call that? Fake coffee episode where I actually did some research and came up with a recipe for basically roasted wheat berries that they turned into an imitation coffee. So there are a lot of different recipes like that. That's one that I found in one of the cookbooks. So there's a bean underneath the pot.
How would an average Joe or soldier grind his coffee beans?
Well, that's part of it. They use their buttstock, or and I've seen them. Even contemporary in the people who are reenacting 18th century, they put their coffee in a bag and they use like a rolling pin, or there again the buttstock,
Mortar and pestle.
mortar and pestle.
Yeah, a lot of different ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. Depends
Or we've
upon
got a
how desperate.
grinder right there.
Yes,
That's a
18th century grinder.
Am I correct?
Artifacts of the American Revolution.
Is the idea of grinding coffee with a mortar and pestle similar to a burr grinder?
No.
Okay.
And that's the difference between. Say this is a burr grinder in here, which means that the coffee is ground a consistent size, and one of the things is there is that consistency. If you use a grinder where you're just beating it, you're gonna have little fine powder and real coarse coffee, and so when you use a burr grinder, you're gonna extract better coffee that way because the water pulls the emulsions out of the coffee
consistently. Yeah.
consistently.
Was Irish coffee a thing, and was adding alcohol even done back then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing. You can. Well, people have the and you go to a coffee house and you order your Irish coffee and they dump some syrup in it. To me, that's not Irish coffee. Irish coffee is you pour Irish whiskey in it, or rum, or whatever. That's the real way. Pour some Baileys in there, some Bushnells. That's the real way to flavor your coffee. But that's
I'm
just
not
a
sure if
personal
that was.
opinion.
I'm not sure if that was an official thing. I mean,
No.
I didn't see that, but we can certainly have plenty of conjecture. They did that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
With a lot of drinks, but I don't know if I have any good references to them actually doing that. But they did it. There you
Hey,
go.
do you want to have John give that a taste?
Is it ready? Is that coffee
Yeah,
ready?
John loves coffee.
it-
Yes.
Here, you can
This is
toss up. I've got my nutmeg already prepped in there, so it's ready.
this.
It's ready.
I think the water wasn't quite as hot as it should because you can
Well, that's
see.
all the better for me.
Yeah,
It's more like coffee tea.
yeah. This is more like coffee tea.
Here we go.
For me, when you make a cup of coffee, you throw the spoon into the cup, and if you hear the spoon hit the cup, it's not strong enough.
Because it hasn't melted while
Yeah.
it's going to the bottom.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's when you do that. That's where you add cream and sugar, or you add
Wow.
whiskey or Baileys to it, and so that all those flavors come through. It's not hidden.
I'm cheating and putting.
Oh my!
John's cracking the sugar. Hey, John, did it taste interesting?
It was tasted very interesting.
Now,
All right, let's talk about Instagram real quick.
So
we
what-
got
what-
an Instagram contest.
Oh yeah, Instagram contest. Okay, let me put some milk in my coffee. There we go. I've got it fully polluted now. It's probably drinkable. Every week we have an Instagram contest here on the live stream, and what we do is we go into Instagram and we pick out a picture, something that is hashtag Townsends. And we pick one out each week, and the winner gets a gift certificate. And we send it to them, DM them, whatever that way. He does. Ryan does.
I'll
all
be
that
in touch.
really cool stuff. So every week we pick one of these out. All it takes is to put up some kind of picture that's Townsend's related, historical related, anything like that. Hashtag Townsend's, or use the @Townsend's_official so that he sees it all the more. And who is the winner this week?
It's Catherine Jacola.
Okay,
And it's
Catherine.
Scotch eggs.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's a nice picture.
Yeah.
Nice picture of
Really
Scotch
nice
eggs.
picture.
So many people have problems with the Scotch eggs. Those,
This
those-
looks perfect.
Yeah,
There
they
you
The
go.
yolks are
Good job.
perfect.
Be
Great
good
job.
with fried chicken.
yeah.
Right.
No.
No, these Scotch eggs look awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that photo, and thanks to everyone else who is sharing photos
Right,
as
we
well.
get so many great pictures. It is great. It is so much fun to watch the feed and see those things come through. So thank you, everyone. And if you didn't win this week, make sure to do it again next week. We'd love to see those pictures.
I wanna do a couple donations here real quick before we move on.
Oh yeah, much better.
So I'm trying to remember where. Yeah, we did. Crystal K Beauty got hers. Okay, $10 from Grandpa's Place.
Thank you, Grandpa's Place.
Thank you, Grandpa's
So
Place.
I'll do the donations and we'll do the questions that they ask. So his
Okay.
questions, and I think this may have been answered. When did they start adding things to coffee grinds like chicory, roasted dandelion, root, and corn? So thanks for your donation. From Mia Lemon, $5. Hashtag Tea Team.
Nice. Thank you.
$5 more from Maxar Cool.
Thank you.
Would a common person drink real coffee daily? Got it. Okay, yeah, there was a typo in the first one. So yeah, when did they start adding those things? Chicory, roasted dandelion, and then would they drink it common? I guess.
The
Well-
trick is deciding who a common person is, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, to kind of address those the best that I can, probably adding coffee probably from the very beginning, because when you look at when you talk about the coffee from the different Arabic countries where it started, Yemen, and so each one has, some of them add rose water, some of them add cardamom, so they add cinnamon, they add different things that were available in their area. Some is Turkish coffee or Greek coffee or whatever. Some of it's just coffee and water. In other places, the coffee is done with rose water, so on and so forth.
So even from the beginning, they were putting additives.
Yeah.
And some of the things he talked about adding seemed to be things that you would do to sort of stretch the coffee.
And probably, yes. And that was one of the things, especially, say, like during World War II, when there was a lot of rationing going on. You could go out along the road or in fields, pick up chicory, and grind it and add it to your coffee. They did that as far back as the American Revolution. They were adding chicory or using chicory straight because they didn't have coffee.
Right.
But you could add the oatmeal. Oatmeal, I've heard, was used, wheat berries. So there's a lot of things, anything you could roast.
There you go. I don't know if I'd oatmeal.
But I'd say common man every day,
Right.
if he could.
Yeah.
you know.
Even just like we talked about, I think it was last week, we talked about chocolate being used as a breakfast drink. And even people that probably couldn't afford it, did it anyway. It was a way of showing your status. It's like, no, I'm rich enough to drink chocolate every day. Even if you couldn't afford it, you'd do that anyway. And coffee's probably some of that same kind of way. You would drink coffee if that's what you really enjoyed. Other people, their drink of choice might be tea or whatever.
I'm going to interrupt real quick because we haven't talked about the special coffee link that I worked tirelessly on.
Yes. Ryan worked tirelessly on the group of products that are coffee related on our website. Coffee beans that Dave roasts and some of those kinds of things. There's also this little book, which is the Domestic Coffee Man, which is a little book that talks about preparing coffee, chocolate, and tea in the 18th century. It's kind of bundled together because it's kind of a short book, but it's also bundled with an 18th century art of brewing, all bundled together in 2 books. So that's available in this link. And
The coffee grinder
the
is
coffee
there?
grinder.
And if you folks are interested in roasting your own coffee, there are
There you
green
go.
beans for sale there.
Green beans for sale. There's one of the
nutmeg mug.
Nutmeg mugs are on that link. So there's a link down in the description section. You can go click on that, check that out. There's a lot of fun coffee stuff there.
Yeah, and you were talking
Go ahead,
about
sorry. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I don't know when we're gonna do this. I want to see that other coffee pot you brought in.
Oh, yeah, and this is
Super coffee pot.
This is a French-made coffee pot, probably turn of the century,
Right.
So
late
1800,
early
yeah.
1900s.
Oh, 1900. Okay.
In the French War Museum, and I can't remember the name of the museum when we were there. This was in Paris. But anyhow, they had a coffee pot almost exactly like this, except it had legs on it, and it was more bulbous shaped. But it was a tin coffee pot with legs, little spigot on the front, pour the coffee in the top, exactly like this.
So it's another drip thing, or is it
It's a drip.
percolator? No, it's a drip.
No,
Okay.
it's a drip.
Okay.
You would put your coffee in here,
Right, and then just pour over.
there, and then there's your coffee pot right there.
Right. That's for making a lot of coffee. I mean,
Yeah.
that top part, what, are you going to have like 3 pounds of coffee up there? Or
Well,
something?
yeah.
It's
you
also a
could-
beautiful sounding instrument.
Right.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can play
Well,
that.
we use this in our 18th century reenactment group. This was the camp coffee pot right here. And we could use it because it was made of tin. And it very much, and I could show them the 18th century one. Now, the shape wasn't exactly correct, but the concept was
Right,
there.
right.
The materials were there, the little brass
Right.
spigot.
And I can see it now. It's at the camp. You turn the little spigot, and then slowly the tar, like coffee,
Yeah,
slowly
yeah.
dribbles out of that.
Sometimes, yes. Especially when there's a line and the guy behind you is going like, when are you going to be done?
All right, we got to put our game faces on because we got lots of questions here.
Okay, lots of questions. Go for it.
Okay, where would people get their green beans for their coffee
There you go.
You mean contemporary or at that time?
at that time?
Okay, well, I would say that probably hasn't really changed in the sense that people ask me, where do I get my beans from? And they don't mean South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah.
They want to know where they're from.
Oh.
And they come from Africa, South America, Central America, Indonesia. The Hawaiian Islands have coffee. You say the Hawaiian Islands, that's the only place that is American that has an American coffee. All the rest of it has to come from other countries. And there's different processes that they use. It's a wet process, dry process. But those coffee beans that they're, and this is real quick, an aside in direct trade and fair trade. Now, fair
He's talking
trade,
modern.
Right.
Yes, go ahead.
Right, contemporary. A fair trade is coffee that when there's a like 60 cents a pound is added to the price of coffee that goes to the fair trade group. And the fair trade group uses that money to build schools and clinics and things like that for the people. Then there's direct trade, which means that my broker, he goes to Africa, he goes to South America, Colombia, Brazil, and buys direct trade coffee. He goes to the farm, buys the coffee from that farm. It comes here, so it goes from the farmer to him to me. And the farmer sets his price. And so the farmer gets to utilize that money. So a lot of the coffees that I buy, I try to buy everything I can direct trade. And a lot of my Colombians, when I get them, they come from small farms that are operated by women, that are like 5-10 acres. One of the coffees I have, it is a Hightower coffee, and that is a coffee that is an orphanage. And so the money that when you use that coffee, that money goes to the orphanage.
And for the other party, if you meant the question the other way, and that is where did they get their green coffee beans? Well, they got them from the grocer, the supplier. They would have both roasted coffees and green coffees, and you might even get them from a coffee shop. Well, they would sell you beans, and they might even sell you green beans also. So in the time period, you would go to the store and you'd buy your green beans. And we're ready for the next one.
Was it common for families to roast their own coffee as opposed to buying pre-roasted?
Oh, it was actually it was more common to buy green coffee. It was uncommon to buy roasted coffee. And for two reasons. One of them is green coffee will last for years in its green state. When it's roasted, the clock starts ticking, and to have really good coffee, you want to use it within 6 weeks. And so contemporarily speaking, when a coffee is roasted, it goes into a warehouse, goes to a distributor, to their warehouse, to the store, then to you. Whereas so like for people who are buying from, say, like Townsends, they'll come down, and that coffee may be, I say, you have to wait till tomorrow because I'm roasting your coffee. So, and that's in the mail. So your coffee might reach you 48 hours after it's roasted. This particular coffee that I have right here, this was roasted 3 hours ago. This is a Captain's Choice, and this is like roasted about noon. So here we are, 4 hours. I'm sorry, 4 hours later. Totally. So, and so you want, now, the other thing that I would say is when coffee is roasted like this, it's good for 6 weeks. When you grind it, you want to use it right away. That's why grinders are important. When you grind that 6 weeks drops to 12 hours. So you lose
There
that
you
much
go.
flavor.
Up for the next one. Or
Did you want to see some 18th century roasters? Real quick.
Let's do
do a
some more
question and
questions.
then-
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
I definitely do, though. We definitely do.
Okay, when did coffee become more affordable
You know, that's hard to say because it probably has always been reasonably affordable because, you know, I own an antique store, the Blue Pearl Antiques in Pearson, Indiana. But I have tea chests in there. And tea in the 18th century was you bought tea in gold.
Yeah.
That's how you bought tea is here's your chunk of gold and that's how much tea you get. Whereas coffee, I have never found, and all tea chests have locks on them, but I've never found a coffee chest. You've sugar chests, tea chests, but never a coffee chest. So it probably always was, and there again, because it's not coming from India, it's coming from Martinique, it's coming from Hispaniola, you know, Cuba or whatever. So the coffee is relatively available. There's not very many steps to process it.
And so because it doesn't taste very good, that people didn't want to buy it.
And obviously the common man could get it because there's so many coffee houses. There was like in London, I think in the roughly 1750s, 2,000 coffee houses in London. So
there you go.
Relatively easy to get.
In the 18th century, was coffee in the UK similar to coffee in the US?
I would say so because you know here's the thing, coffee. If you're going to get it, we're all getting it from the same countries essentially. Probably in the UK though, at that time they're probably getting Indonesian and African coffees, whereas here in the Americas we're getting South America, Central America, those particular coffees.
So.
And probably some of it was exported. Some of the South and Central American coffees were taken back to England.
Okay. John.
Yeah.
Let's talk. First, we're going to go check out some coffee roasters in just a second. But first, will you talk to us about the American Frontier series?
Yeah. So right now on the channel, you may have seen, say, Wednesday's episode, Monday's episode, and that little interesting trailer that we put out on Thursday. We're working on the American Frontier series here on the channel, and it's sort of a special set. No, this isn't special. Anyway, it's a special set of episodes where we really choose to kind of hone in on what's happening with the American frontier in the 18th century. Instead of looking at, you know, what's happening in England or what's happening on the East Coast, that's highly populated. So we're actually looking for episodes that kind of really focus on that. And we've got a series of episodes that we've done just recently with Dan Wilwack of Coalcracker Bushcraft. But we'll be working on more of these in the upcoming weeks and months. In fact, we've got a sort of exploratory group, or exploratory thing that we're going to go up into Michigan and look at some of those kinds of episodes. But that's the kind of thing we're working on right now, both some episodes that are already done and some episodes that we're planning right now. Boy, I've got a busy 4 or 5 weeks ahead of me right now, and we're really working on some of these, really excited about some of the ideas and content.
Great. Hey, Dave, can we see those roasters?
Sure.
Roasters.
And I brought 3 roasters with me here.
I've got this one.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me. There's the one that looks like a pan.
Oh, I don't have
Let's
that one.
start with that one.
I don't have that
What
one.
did I do with that one?
It's right behind you.
Oh, I knew it was here close. All right. This is you can see the legs on here, which means it would be used like in a fireplace, and it's totally round. It's like you cut a basketball in half, fairly light. So coffee, you would drop your coffee in there because you have to keep it moving all the time. You can't let it sit or it'll burn on one side, green on the other. So you're shaking it all the time to keep that coffee in movement so that it's evenly roasted. So this is an 18th century coffee roaster you'd use on the fireplace. Of course, you could also cook in it then too. So it does a double duty. This one here this rotates. This slides open here. You put the coffee in there. And this is like coffee roasters today. And so you would rotate this. This would set it like on the fireplace dogs, and the person rotates it, and you smell it and you listen to it to determine when the coffee is done. Of course, then you can always open it up and look in there.
And you would constantly rotate it.
Yeah, you never let it sit, because if you let it sit, they're again burnt. And then this is really an unusual one. I've only seen 2 of these. And this is very similar. You'll see
It's a cannonball mold.
Yeah. Well, that's what some people thought they were.
It makes you
Cannonball
think
bowl.
of like the grilled cheese or the
Cannonball
think
bowl.
of like the grilled cheese or the
Yeah.
poochie pie makers or whatever.
Yeah, well, you know, it's you see the waffle makers are made like this.
Yeah.
And so, but you put the coffee in there, and you're just like that and shaking it, and this was I found was truly a unique find. Like I said, I've only seen 2 of these.
And now this one's broken. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, you just gotta fit that thing together. So now you can see to some degree that's the concept of roasting, and those are kind of like the methods, and that really hasn't changed much other than adding hot air, but it's keeping the coffee in motion with heat, and you're working on a time temperature curve. Because and what you're doing is caramelizing the sugars in the coffee. That's what you're doing. So you have green coffee, which I forgot to bring green coffee. But anyhow, it's green, you know. And now coffee can be all different colors, but primarily kind of a greenish brown. Mm-hmm. And so you are caramelizing the sugar, so you have to watch it. And there again, you get from a very light roast to a very dark roast. So when somebody asked the question earlier, was the coffee in England the same as America?
There you go.
In that respect, yes, it was, because you're still roasting at home and you roast it the way you like it. You know, so that's why I have a varying degrees of coffee, from a very light roast, which is that's Captain's Choice here. This is 2 Moons coffee here. This is a real light roast, fairly light roast, and
You can just hold it in your hand.
yeah. You can see that's just fairly light roast right there. And this is all African coffees, because African coffees tend to be more fruity and like dry red wines. You get your South American coffees, they're going to be a little more chocolate notes in them, a little sweeter. A Mexican coffee, almost like the darker you roast it, the sweeter it gets. So if I'm doing a roast and I want to add a little sweetness to the coffee, I'll add some Mexican to it. And then this coffee here, and I don't know how well you can see this. You can see lights and darks in here. And this is my favorite coffee, this is Captain's Choice. And what this is 4 different coffees that I've roasted darker because it brings out their best characteristics as a dark coffee, and 3 that are roasted light as their best characteristics or a light coffee. Sometimes you'll see this as a Copenhagen blend or a Northern European blend. You very seldom see this because you have to roast 2 times, 1 dark roast, 1 light roast, and then you blend for each one of those roastings, and then you blend it once more, and you got to balance all that out. So here's 7 coffees, give you a very complex but very smooth coffee, very interesting. And it's always my turn to coffee when I'm not sure what I want to take home that day.
So do you think that coffees in the 18th century were that complex?
Yeah, that was my question. So when I worked for you and we were roasting coffee, it was like, we've got these small windows. It's like, if you don't hit it within that window, it's gone too far, or or it hasn't gone long enough. Were they concerned about that?
Probably. Well, now what you have to think about, a lot of them, they're roasting it there in a skillet, so they're watching this coffee. They know exactly where it wants to be, because you have this time temperature curve, so it achieves a certain color, and at the same time there's an aroma given off. So sometimes I judge the coffee, it's ready by that time temperature of curve, and it's a combination of what it looks like and what it smells like. And 30 seconds sometimes will make the difference of, is this acceptable or unacceptable?
And so would they have been saying, oh, I want some darker and some lighter in this, and combining that?
That would be up to the individual.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're probably, at that time, although coffee was probably relatively plentiful, they didn't have as many choices. You know, nobody's going in there and I want a Guatemalan Huehue Tenango, and
It's probably a much simpler setting.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I go to that place
Coffee
and their coffee's
beans.
good, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna do some donations.
Great.
Just a couple. So we have 549. Well, it's euro.
Yeah.
So
549
euro. Not 549 euro.
Yes, yep.
Do you get it now?
5.5 almost.
You got it.
Got it.
Got it. Much love from the Netherlands.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did people also add sugar and cream back then? If not, when did this start to happen? And then another donation from Grandpa's Place, $10. Thank you so much. Was Kopi Luwak coffee in the 18th century? So we'll do the adding sugar and cream, and then you get that up.
Would John have survived in the 18th century coffee world?
Probably, because they had cows then. They had sugar. You know, so, and there again, we go back to what did they add to their coffee? Anything that makes it taste good. You know, so if there again, it could be I roasted my coffee too far, but I'm not going to throw it away because it's too expensive to throw away. So I'm going to add some sugar to it. I'll add some cream to it, and throw in a shot of whiskey into that, and it's going to be good. Heck yeah.
What was the other question, Aaron?
It was.
Is that the Kopay?
Yeah.
All right, Kopay coffee, and I'm sure what that is that is the coffee beans that are eaten by the civets, which are kind of like a cat, and they charge a couple $100 for this, or a couple $100 for a pound of this coffee. I have roasted that coffee, and I have tasted it now, and I'll be very blunt. When I put that in my roaster, I might as well. To me, it smelled like I shoved manure into my coffee roaster. And then when we ground it and tried it, it was not as tasty as I would have thought for $200 a pound. But that's just personal. Now, here is the theory behind that, and that is that coffee, when it's picked, there's coffee that's green, too green, but you want to pick it just perfect. And so the more perfect your coffee, the more you pay for that. And it's hard to do because the pickers, they're being paid by the pound. They're going to take everything and throw it in there. And then it's sorted. Like all Hawaiian coffee, like from the island of Kauai, they sort every single bean. But it's electronically done. And they sort every single bean, so they get just the perfect beans. Now, what you have to think about is that the civets, and prior to that, actually in South America, it was fruit bats. We're picking the cherries off there, and they're going to pick. If you were up in the tree and you could take whatever you want, you're going to pick the perfect. You're not going to take the rotten one, and you're not going to eat the green one. You're going to eat the perfect cherry. And so that's what it is. They were picking the perfect cherry. Now, at that time, they were taking the manure from the basket, and that's how they were fertilizing the coffee trees. And I'm sure that they saw these. Here's all the seeds from the coffee. This is like free coffee here. So I'm sure they picked it, and that's what they do. They pick it up, wash it. You know,
Thank goodness.
Wash it, and
With bleach,
they must
or?
not have washed mine that good.
Yeah,
but anyhow,
that's the problem.
but I understand the theory of it, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't nearly as tasty. You know, we were talking just a few minutes ago about the cost of coffee, and so anyhow, one of the things about coffee is that there was a few years ago. I bought coffee from Nicaragua, and they said it was the very best coffee that ever came out of Nicaragua. And at that time, I was selling it for $10 a pound, whereas coffee from Hawaii or Jamaican Blue Mountain might be $50 a pound. So here it is for $10 a pound. You can afford the very best of coffees. And in a lot of respect, quality coffee is extremely inexpensive compared to good quality wines.
If you know what you're buying. Okay.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Everybody in the chat, for some reason, wants you to turn your hat backwards.
Why would they want me to do that?
Wow, he just did it. I was expecting you to say no, and then I was gonna say somebody donated $20 for you to do that.
There you go.
So $20 from Rob Morrow. Thank you so much.
You should have had on here Townsends and Sons.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. Okay, I'll turn it back now.
All right. Now we're done with that nonsense. Kyle, let's get some more questions in here.
Yeah. Okay, so where did the colonies import their coffee during the Revolutionary War?
Well, there again, I would say
there was a lot of smuggling going on.
Right.
In that time
Oh, yeah,
period.
yeah.
So a lot of Dutch things like that. It's probably a lot of Dutch stuff going through the East Indies, and then they're getting smuggled into the colonies.
Yeah, everybody's there to make money, and coffee is the second highest commodity traded in the world. The only thing traded more is oil. So when you think of the dollars that are with coffee, it is a tremendous amount, and so there's a lot of money there.
Yep.
Was coffee found in old cookbooks, maybe used to flavor puddings or sauces?
I haven't seen any coffee used to flavor things. There's definitely references to coffee, and there's like the coffee cookbook that tells you, or the coffee book that tells you how to brew it and all that good stuff, and how to roast it. But not as a flavor that I've noticed.
Well, it could have been in so like chocolate, or making chocolate or chocolate puddings or cakes, because you do that now. Actually, in making coffee truffles, there's a way of taking an espresso to make coffee truffles with.
But even in the 18th century, you don't see very many coffee recipes besides the drinking of coffee. Sometimes you see coffee tarts, things like that. But it's not a real popular thing like it is today.
When did coffee become more popular than tea?
Well, Nicholas Creswell talks about in his journal right there in the Revolutionary War time period that there was sort of an embargo. This is the last day we're supposed to drink tea, and now we're supposed to be drinking coffee. I'm sure there's going to be a very large kind of switchover during that time period where it's like, no, we're rejecting tea because it's coming from the British. So there's definitely reference to that in Creswell's journal as well as other situations.
It showed your loyalty if you drank coffee.
Exactly.
Unless
How
you were
widespread
Tories.
was the French press?
When
Widespread was the French press. I don't know about the history of French press and coffee.
You know, and I will say that the French press in itself, I don't know how far back that goes. I would say the French press is going to be relatively contemporary when you look at the progression of how coffee is brewed and how it's made. And I would say probably not much prior to maybe the mid to late 1800s. Just taking a guess, because
19th century, yeah.
Yeah, 19th century. Prior to that, I would doubt it because of just how coffee was brewed. You didn't. It is as you progressed into the industrial age. That's when things became more complex. You know, hence mousetraps. You know, here's a blue million patents for mousetrap. Is probably when patents started happening.
Well, and there's a French press idea of making it in small quantities also.
Yes.
You don't make a giant batch. And I think typically before that, most coffee was made in larger batches. And so that French press idea is like make 1 cup.
All right. Hey, John, let's talk one more time about the Great Appalachian Homestead Conference.
Yeah, I haven't talked about this. I've been keeping it in my back pocket here for the last couple months. But May 4th and 5th, I am headed to the Great Appalachian Homesteading Conference. I'll be doing a talk. I'll be there the whole time. It'll be great. If you are interested in homesteading, you're in the Tennessee area or anywhere around there, and you're interested in that event, there's a link down in the description section. There's a whole bunch of things going on there. Some of them are 18th century related. Other ones are modern homesteading related, but it looks like it's going to be a great event. I had the list of courses, and it was so good. Anyway, I would love to see you there. If you're in that area, you want to stop by there, make sure to check out the link in the description.
We've got another link in the description. It's about coffee.
If you're interested in all this cool coffee stuff, are you interested in beans, green coffee beans? You want to roast your own? You want a coffee grinder, a coffee mug, a book about how they did coffee in the 18th century, actual 18th century book on coffee. Make sure to check out the link to our store. There's a lot of great coffee stuff. We kind of bundled it all in one category so you can find it quickly and easily. A great link there.
And quickly, let's talk about Instagram contest. We have a winner.
Instagram contest. Every Friday we do an Instagram contest. We go through Instagram. We go through the hashtag Townsends. Pick out one that has to do with history or Townsends or merch or whatever it is. And they're the winner each week. And is it up on the screen?
There it is.
Who was it this week again?
Oh, man. Catherine Jacoli.
Thank you, Catherine, for participating. And I want to thank everyone who participates. With that, we have so much fun looking through those pictures, and other people get a chance to look through them. So a lot of great fun. And if you've been competing and we haven't won yet, keep trying. We pick a new one each week, and you're probably up next.
All right. So Aaron's got a few donations, and then we're going to have to say goodbye.
Okay.
Actually, just one, but
just
I'll read
one.
it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
$5 from Brian Riley. I know chicory was used as a substitute / adulterant in the late 1800s, but how about the 1700s?
I haven't seen chicory specifically. Have you? He says
I'm going to say
no
yes.
is the answer.
I would think so. I would think yes. And because I read all the books on coffees, and I'll just really quick. I had an opportunity, or there was a request for me to do a talk on coffee. This was some years ago a morning Optimist club, and they wanted 15 minutes, and I was trying to think, how can I talk about coffee for 15 minutes? So I had a retirement home coming over the day before, and I thought I'd practice on them. They got there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they said, "Dave, we have to leave." And I said, "I'm not done yet." So there is a lot. There's a lot about coffee, and in this short period of time, we really can't. We're hitting the high spots and most interesting things.
Kyle says that he's got one more really great question. I think we should have Dave back in the future.
Oh, yeah.
There's too much to cover.
Too much to cover.
One more last question. How much coffee am I supposed to drink each day?
There we go.
As much as you can afford.
No, 5 gallons, right?
Yeah. Well, you know that it is an antioxidant. There's a lot of good things about coffee.
Good for you.
But usually they say on average 3 or 4 cups. I usually have 2 or 3 cups in the morning. I'll have, and then I'll
2 or 3 cups at lunch.
Yeah,
2 or 3 cups.
Yeah. Well, and the little cafe right next to me sells my coffee, Oddfellow Cafe, and so they have an espresso machine. So I'll run over and have a short cappuccino in the morning, and then I'll run over in the afternoon and have a double espresso. And then I'll have a couple of cups of coffee when I'm just standing around doing nothing.
I think I've been doing life wrong.
Yeah.
For years.
I drink at least a pot and a half a day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thank goodness we don't have like a cappuccino or a espresso machine here. That has to be bad.
Oh, when I had the coffee house, had the espresso machine all the time.
I want to thank these guys back here for doing a great job. I want to thank everyone out there. I want to thank Dave for coming along and bringing all this cool stuff. What?
Did you have Patreon names that you wanted to talk about?
I did. Okay,
we need to fit that in.
Stop. Before we stop, here we go. There's 414 Patreon folks right now. New ones: Lisa Fittinghoff, Lorelei Anna, Max Ree, Victoria Nielsen, P.L. Frederick. Thank you for your extra. And Mark, all these guys, everyone. I want to thank everyone so much for supporting us that way.
We can't leave.
We can't leave.
No.
There's something more?
It's a donation from Libby Rudolph. Another $5.
Thank you,
so
Libby
much.
Rudolph.
Thank you, Libby.
Everybody wants to have Dave back.
Okay, Dave's coming back.
Yeah.
This
With chocolate cake or creme brulee to go with this coffee.
Yeah.
We're going to go through the cookbook.
Oh, yeah.
So, thank you, Dave, for bringing
My
all the
pleasure.
great stuff
It was
and bringing
fun.
the coffee, the wonderful coffee. I want to thank you guys all out there for all your amazing support. You watch our videos, you comment on our videos, you support us through Patreon or, just watching our videos and sharing our videos. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for watching.